Hi, good evening, everyone. Okay, so we'll go ahead and wrap up the questions that were left from IIT JAM 2024 paper, whose recording is not available yet. Look at the first question. Try to do this question yourself first. The Rangarajan panel on 4th June 1993 submitted recommendation related to balance of payment. Which of the following was not part of panel's recommendation? Just give this a try. Try to do this question yourself first. Okay. Others? So this Rangarajan committee basically, it was actually formed, it was established in the year 1991, right? It was part of the LPG when we were going ahead and we were talking about the liberalization, privatization, globalization policies. During that period, it was set up, right? And it was set up under the chairmanship of Dr. Rangarajan, okay, as the word suggests. Now, so first thing is that this was set up in response to economic crisis that existed in India, right? And this committee went ahead and it submitted its report based on this in 1993, right? And there were many things that this committee had suggested. बहुत सारा चीजें था. The most important thing that this committee had gone ahead and suggested, it was gradual liberalization of the economy. Gradual liberalization of economy. What does it mean, gradual liberalization of economy? Of course, हमने already पढ़ लिया है that liberalization means going ahead and liberating the economy, making it free, right? Not having a lot of control of the government, right? Giving a lot of control to the private sector, right? So first of all, it said कि हमें अपना इकोनॉमी को थोड़ा ओपन करना पड़ेगा, हमें गवर्नमेंट के कंट्रोल को थोड़ा कम करना पड़ेगा, and we will have to move towards an open economy. Right, we will have to reduce trade restrictions, okay, and we will have to make market exchange rate the exchange rate more market driven. So you remember that earlier whenever we talked about the exchange rate, this exchange rate was always fixed exchange rate, right? But now this suggested that we should be moving more towards market driven exchange rate, mane floating exchange rate. So this was one of the important thing that this committee suggested. अब इसी में इन्होंने इस exchange rate को actually एक नाम भी दिया, and they actually went ahead and they called this exchange rate as LERMS. As LERMS. LERMS means what? It means liberated or liberalized exchange rate market management system. So this is the exchange rate which is more related to the market. इसमें हम market से relation ज़्यादा रखते हैं. And if you remember, in one of the questions I told you that it is in 1994 that we started talking about full convertibility of rupee for current account. कि at least current account rate के लिए rupee was fully convertible. Right? So it was this committee which was playing an important role in this. for this full convertibility of rupee in current account and for bringing this liberalized exchange rate management system इस कमेटी का काफी important role रहा है. Then this committee also went ahead and it focused on very important thing, which was foreign direct investment, FDIs. Right? And it said that we should definitely go ahead and we should definitely encourage foreign direct investment, which was not happening in the earlier period. Okay? So if you go through the videos of 5-year plan, you will realize that in the earlier period, government wanted to become self-sufficient. And self-sufficiency meant that we will not take anything from the foreign sector. But now what we started saying is that we want to go ahead and we want to become more open to getting the investments from the outside also. So foreign direct investment was more stressed during this period, during 1999 1991 period, और इस कमेटी का उसमें भी बहुत important role था. And you remember that why exactly this 1991 problem occurred? Because we had current account deficit. So it also focused on reduction of trade deficit. You know, the reason for 1991, it focused on reducing that, right? And not only trade deficit, ये तो हमें पता है this is an external deficit problem, but it also focused on the reduction of fiscal deficit, which we know is called as an internal balance problem. Right? So we wanted to go ahead and we wanted to focus on both the sectors, internal also and external also. These are some of the key things that it focused on. Okay, now let's go back to the question number 24. So this question goes ahead and says that which of the following was not a part of panel's recommendation? Effort should be made to replace debt flow with equity flow. Yes, this actually ensures that you lower the deficit. When you have equity, equity gives you ownership. But when it is debt, debt is related to a liability. है ना? So equity is always considered better than debt. This is one thing that was suggested by the Rangarajan panel. So that is the correct option. Now look at the last, third one first. Minimum target for foreign reserves should be fixed in such a way that reserves are generally positioned to accommodate imports for 3 months. Can you tell me that during the 1991 period, हमारे पास कितने दिन के reserves बचे थे? How many days reserves were left for us during the 1991 period? Yes, yes. So just absolutely 14 days, right? Some say 15 days, right? So which means that one big problem that we had during that period was that we didn't have reserves for import. So definitely this was one of the recommendation because it was created in response to this economic crisis that we want to increase the minimum reserves. This was also one of the important things that was suggested. Now, this was nowhere mentioned by them. The ratio of debt linked to equity should be limited to 1:4. This ratio 1:4 is not really something that was mentioned by this committee. And therefore, this seems to be the right answer in this case. So we will go ahead with option number B. This is not one of the recommendations which were given by the panel, right? Now, the important question that arises is how do we solve questions related to panels, right? There are many panels which have been created, and it is highly impossible to revise all the panels that have been created. But there are some suggestions which I can give you that this is the minimum which you should be going ahead and you should be doing. The first is you should know all the major tax reform committees. This is an important thing that can be asked in your exam, right? So when I talk about major tax reform committee, at least जो भी important ones है, right? Like for example, what did the Rangarajan committee did, or what did the Chelia committee did? Those major tax reform committees, they are important, right? What is called Calder committee? What did they do? So they are the important committees which you need to remember. And there is a video which is present on these tax committees that I have created. In case you cannot find that, let me know. I will tell you where to read it from, right? The second important thing which you need to do is anything and everything related to liberalization, privatization, and globalization needs to be done. Now, if you realize, ये जो committee form हुई थी, this was in response to LPG. So, any committee which has been formed in response to the economic crisis during that period, because there is definitely going to be question on LPG, 150%, not one, 2 or 3 questions on LPG. तो जो भी committees इसके response में form की गई हैं, you need to go ahead and you need to make sure that you do that well, right? And number 3, you should be also aware about some of the recent committees formed by the government. Recent committees and reforms formed by the government, some of which I will be discussing in the economic reform and budget class, economic budget and survey class tomorrow. Right? So, of course, it is impossible कि हम सारा committees हमें पता हो whatever is formed till now, because the syllabus is not very precise as to which committees one should focus on. But at least we know that these are some of the important things which should be done from the point of view of committees of India, and you should be going ahead and doing these well. Okay. It's you're right. This is so it says it's not a part of the recommendation, right? So this was not given by them as part of the recommendation. No sovereign guarantee should be extended to the private sector. So this, if you really think about it, anyone who can tell me what is a sovereign guarantee? Anyone? So, sovereign guarantee is usually where the government gives a guarantee that we will repay the loan in case someone is not able to repay the loan. Okay? Usually, it has been seen that during the extreme period, जैसे हमने देखा था during Great Depression or during 2008 crisis, very 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 few firms got payment done by the government for their debt, right? But otherwise, the government is not committed to back up the debt taken by any borrower, especially if it is of the private sector. Public sector का हो तो I will go ahead and I will back up that. कि अगर कोई public sector organization है which is not able to repay the loan, so I will repay the loan. But if it is a private sector player, then the government is not obligated to go ahead and pay that loan on their behalf if they fail to pay the loan, if they are unable to fulfill their financial obligation. तो ये कह रहा है कि no sovereign guarantee should be extended to private sector, which is correct. We are not extending these guarantees to the private sector, right? The government is only liable till the public sector, not for what the private sector does. Okay, let's take the next question. Try this one. Question number 25. Again, something which is very unexpected, because there are multiple reports which are there, right? But again, I will tell you which are the major reports that you can go ahead and study. So just try to do this one first. At least 2 to 3 questions in Indian Eco every year will be very abrupt and unexpected. But other than that, 97% of the paper can be what we can predict at least. Anyone? ठीक है. Okay. Okay. So, first of all, let me just help you understand which are the important inequality reports which we can go ahead and we can talk about, right? The first important inequality report, you can just make a note of this today itself. That's called as Oxfam India's inequality report, right? As the word suggests, this is generated by an organization called Oxfam India, and इसमें ये बहुत सारा पब्लिकेशंस करते हैं जिसमें वो डेटा प्रोवाइड करते हैं एज टू व्हाट is the income and wealth inequality of each country, right? And in that only they also provide for what happens in India, what is the percentage of poor, percentage of rich, etc., how much income is concentrated with top 1% of people. All these things they go ahead and they publish. So they talk about the income inequality, they talk about the gender inequality, they talk about, they also, when there was COVID-19, they also went ahead and they talked about the inequality arising due to COVID. ठीक है. And उसमें उन्होंने एक particular report दी थी. The name of that report was Inequality Kills. That was the name of the report that they had generated. This was generated in 2022 post COVID. ठीक है. तो इस रिपोर्ट का यही एजेंडा था, टू शो दैट हाउ the rich were able to survive during COVID, whereas the people who were poor were not able to survive COVID-19, and how COVID-19 further pushed people into poverty. कैसे और ज्यादा लोग poor हो गए post COVID-19, right? And one of the important recommendation of this Oxfam India inequality report is that it focuses on talking about progressive taxation. What is progressive taxation? It is taxing the rich at a higher rate, taxing the poor at a lower rate. So as your income increases, the tax that you pay also increases. Absolutely correct. ठीक है. तो ये एक चीज है जिसपे वो काफी फोकस करते हैं. Now, the second thing that we go ahead and we can talk about, the second report that we can go ahead and we can talk about, please make a note of this. It is World Inequality Report. This is all the additional information that I'm giving you so that in case it comes in this year's exam, you're aware of it. Okay. World Inequality Report, this is actually published by a particular lab और उसका नाम है World Inequality Lab. Right. And this is led by various economists. You must have heard the name of the economist called Thomas Piketty, right? So Lucas, right? Gabriel Zuckman, right? So ऐसे economist इस lab को lead करते हैं and they publish this World Inequality Report. As the word suggests, since this is World Inequality Report, it goes ahead and it gives a global perspective on inequality. Right. It talks about, again, income inequality, wealth inequality, gender inequality, rural urban inequality, but global level पे इन सब का बात होता है. Then third, if you go to my Dev Eco lectures, उसमें ना I have given you various forms of human development index, right? In that, there I have mentioned that in those lectures, there is something which is known as Human Development Report, which is inequality adjusted. It's called Inequality Adjusted Human Development Index. Okay. So inequality adjusted human development index is a special form of human development index. By the way, इसी से मुझे याद आया. Make sure that all of you do the formula of HDI very well. All of you go ahead and understand why, what is used in HDI. I have discussed this in lecture. Just for example, when we go ahead and when we find HDI, why do we use geometric mean over arithmetic mean? You should be aware of it. Why in income we use log? You should be aware about it. Okay? So you should be aware about the formula of HDI. जो भी उसके components है, how we find them, उनका base value क्या लेते हैं हम. You should be very, very clear with HDI. Now, when this human development index, when this is adjusted for inequality, it's called as inequality adjusted human development index. Inequality adjusted human development index has more components than human development index. इसमें हम थोड़ा सा हेल्थ केयर एंड एजुकेशन में कितना इनइक्वालिटी है उसको भी कंसिडर करते हैं. This is more than enough for you to know, right? So we focus on what is the amount of inequality that exists in the healthcare sector and the education sector. Now another, so you know that HDI is published by UNDP, right? So this is also given by UNDP. This is the third one. The fourth one that we have, that is basically called as India Human Development Survey, right? You can write the short form also, IHDS. This is given by an organization which is called as National Council of Applied Economic Research. You might have heard its name. Okay. And again, this talks about inequality across various social groups. The theme is more or less the same. Ki how much inequality exists along different caste. Okay. In male versus female, right? Along different regions of India. How much inequality exists in the healthcare sector, which people have more access to healthcare, which people have less access to healthcare. So that is another inequality report which is generated, right? Then there is every year the survey that is published also has its own inequality report, and that is called as inequality report by economic survey. Okay. This is, of course, because this is economic survey, this is published by Ministry of Finance. Okay. This talks about inequality that exists across states, and it also talks about the lagging states. कौन से states में inequality ज़्यादा है, किनको cope up करने की ज़रूरत है, कहाँ पे income ज़्यादा है, कहाँ पे income कम है, और उसको हम कैसे ठीक कर सकते हैं. This is what it goes ahead and it talks about. So these are some of the additional inequality reports which I just wanted to highlight. Now let's go to this question. According to the state of inequality in the India report from Institute of Competitiveness released on 18th May 2022, which of the following statement is correct? So the correct statement in this case is actually statement number C. Statement number A, B, and D are the incorrect statements. Using data from periodic labor force, the report shows that individuals with monthly salary of 25,000 are among top 10% of total wage earners. Just below today's lecture, I will just attach a PDF of this report also in case you want to go through this report. But it's very abrupt. You see, it just says one report that was released in 2022 and it talks about that. So I am going to go ahead and attach that report. If you have time, you can go through that PDF also. Okay. Let's go to the next question. Try to do this one. It's a good question.